Hi, Emily. How are you doing? And you're from the other part of the world, right? We are talking to you from different. I think we're all in different continents right now.
No, I'm actually in Mumbai right now.
Oh, you're in Mumbai. Okay.
Yeah,
Good. Okay. So, how is it? What's going on? Are you shooting there? Tell me.
yeah, it's good. I'm actually promoting Jungle Cry right now. So we were supposed to release, March of 2020, and unfortunately, with the given circumstances of the pandemic, we had to push it. It's finally releasing, and we're finally getting the coverage and attention that it deserves. So I'm very proud of this film and excited for people to watch it.
Okay, tell me about yourself. You speak Gujarati, you speak Hindi, you speak a lot of other languages, and you grew up. You grew up in the U.S. basically. So,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
and you were always fond of being in front of the camera from a very young age. So tell me about growing up and then all of that together.
Sure. So I grew up in New Jersey with my ba and my dadu. Obviously, my parents were there, but they were always working. So I was very close with my grandparents. And my first language was actually Gujarati. So I'm very fluent in Gujarati. And then I learned English in school. And then, Hindi I learned later on in life, as well as to read and to write a little bit. So I learned that in school as well. But I was always very immersed in my Indian culture and heritage. I mean, I grew up going to Garba. Ba took me to the mandir, once a week. So I always had that type of culture and tradition in everything that I did. And, being a Westerner and technically an American, I was very Indian for coming from, the West side of the world. So being here in India feels very comfortable to me. It feels like home. I'm a citizen of India as well. And I'm very proud of that. And I've always been coming here since I've been a child. So it's nice to be back.
So back home, you're from Bombay. Bombay is home to you. When you go back to India, you go
Yeah.
back to home. Okay.
Yeah, my father actually is from Borivali. So we used to spend a lot of time there, but now I stay in Juhu when I come. So
Okay, lovely. And tell me about training. Now, you were always inclined towards the performing arts. So how did you train to be? You trained in dance. You trained in a lot of things. You went to
yeah,
college. You had degrees on entertainment and all of that. So tell me about that. How did you realize that this is your calling and this is what you want to now train?
sure. Before I could actually walk, my mom put me in dance classes. So I learned how to dance before I learned how to walk. And
Okay.
I love dance. It's a big passion of mine as a kid. And I love performing and being on stage. And that's where I kind of got the idea of, acting and the performing arts and theater and that, arts of that nature. And so at the age of 5, they actually brought me down to Mumbai and they put me in Madhumati's acting academy, just right here in Juhu. And I was here for 3 months training with Madhumati herself and living with her. And, I'd wake up and we dance and act and sing and all of that good stuff. And I just really fell in love with it. And I think my parents believed in me so much as a child. So for that, it's because of them and pushing me, which it's hard to find supportive parents who support you in the arts. And so it's very important that, that they were an integral part of my growth and journey. And I just think that they saw something in me and they said, this kid has this very expressive talent and behavior. And so she has to express that somewhere. And that's when they started putting me in more and more classes and started back at Lee Strasberg when I was, 7 years old. I was training between Los Angeles and New York during the summers at Lee Strasberg. And I trained for about 13 years there. Wow. And then I did New York Academy as well. I also trained at Margie Haber and Stuart Rogers, a lot of different studios, Weiss Barron as well, a lot of studios between the two coasts of New York and Los Angeles. So kind of having that training, in theater as well as film, improv, comedy, things of that nature. Also taking stunt combat courses and working with a stunt team camera. Yeah. So I did have a little bit of training in that. I also kickbox and do taekwondo and things of that nature. So my dream is one day to do a female espionage action type of film that's very dramatic, hot, romantic, things of that nature. So yeah, it's kind of been my journey so far.
And then how did you start working in the industry? So you worked very closely with Clint Eastwood. You worked on Captain America, Fast and Furious, a lot of other films. So tell me about that. And you were assistant directing them, right? You were an AD.
Yeah, I was. Yeah. So I worked on all of these films throughout my college career as well, because I wanted to get a degree and that was very important to me. And my degree is in entertainment media management. So kind of that production and marketing side of media. But while I was in college, I did assist them and I worked on Captain America, the Marvel series with Spiro Rosados, who's one of the biggest stunt directors. He's done, Fast and Furious franchise, Bad Boys. And then I ended up working with him on Fast and Furious 7. the iconic film where unfortunately, late Paul Walker passed away. And so that was such a massive film that we were working on at the time. And then I did another Universal picture called Monster Trucks, which again was like a car type of film, action. And I worked all behind the scenes with him, with Spiro Rosatos being his personal assistant. And then I moved on to working with Clint Eastwood for Jersey Boys. So we shot between Los Angeles and New Jersey, actually, my hometown. And so that was kind of a nice feel to have such a big Hollywood film in my own hometown. And then on top of that, to be assisting such an icon and a legend, who's respected worldwide, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Right. So how did Bollywood happen to you?
I grew up in this industry. My family's production company kind of showed me that instead of playing on a regular playground as many children would do, I played on, the sets of productions, and that was kind of my playground. And so I was drawn to that essence of this vibrant and, multiverse culture of Bollywood. And what you get in the States is, you get English speaking films, and then it's kind of just your story of your XYZ genres. And it's pretty much you box them into these specific genres. But with the Indian cinema industry, it's not just Bollywood. I mean, we have Tollywood, we have Gujarati films, Punjabi films, we have Masala films, you have, the independent films. So there's such a wide range, variety of different types of content. So that's what I really loved, especially in today's day and age. What Bollywood and the India cinema industry is doing is nothing like anybody else is doing in the world. And so I think that's why I'm so drawn to it. And I'm hoping to work here, after Jungle Cry comes out, and start establishing and building a career here.
And tell me about Jungle Cry. It's about barefoot sportsmen, children from Orissa, and who make it to the U14 Rugby World Cup England, and you play their physiotherapist. So tell me,
that's right.
Nice story. It's a real story that's being made into a film, or is it a documentary?
Yes. No, it's a biopic. So when I actually heard of this story, I never heard of it in real life. And this happened in 2007, but I figured, okay, Cello, I'm American. Maybe that's why I didn't hear about it. But then when I came to India to start working on the project as an EP, I realized that nobody in India had heard of this story. Mm-hmm. Not even the people in Kolkata, which is so close to Orissa. I mean, probably the major city next to Orissa. Nobody even there heard of it. Mm-hmm. So I thought, this is odd, because this is such an inspiring story. And, Dr. Samantha, who runs Kalinga Institute of Social Sciences, put up such a high stake to send these boys out to the UK. He put up the school for collateral in order to be able to afford to send them to the UK on the basis that they would win. I mean, he has such a massive reach and he's doing so much for his community. So to put that on the line because he believed in the boys so much says a lot. And then for them to not get recognized after winning such a huge achievement is just not right. And it wasn't fair. So I just thought it was our social responsibility to tell the story now that the script and, the rights had come across my table. And so I read the script and I figured that there were no female characters. And I spoke to Shabir Boxwala about that. And I said, it's 2020. It doesn't make sense to make a film without one female character. And it likely won't be acceptable. There's that element of touch that's missing. How could you make a film without one female actress?
Yeah.
So he said,
right,
yeah. So he said, let's start creating, a female character and see how we can add that element. On top of that, rugby is a very rigid, tough sport, and it's very masculine driven. So when you just add, Abhay always says this, but when you add so much testosterone, it just feels really heavy, and there's no soft break that up. So that's why we brought in the character of Roshni Tucker. And of course, Roshni means light. And I think you see that in the second half of the film when Roshni is introduced. She just uplifts the film and kind of brings this warmth and compassion to the film that's otherwise missing.
Okay. And did you meet the boys?
Yeah, of course I did. We worked closely with them. They were the boys that were from the original story had also, they had grown up by now. So they came to Wales and Swansea to chaperone the boys that were playing them in the film. But the boys that were playing them in the film actually are not actors. So we didn't do a casting. The way we did the casting is that we went to the rugby fields where these boys were playing, at Kalinga Institute, and then Paul Walsh's Jungle Crows where they're at in, Kolkata. So we went to see these boys who are rugby players, and we sought out the most expressive and the most disciplined, players, and we made them actors. So it's really interesting to see, because at the core they're rugby players, but in this film some of them are just star standouts, and you'll be able to definitely tell who those players are, but they've done such an excellent job.
Okay. Is there a difference that you find working between the two industries, or it's equally as professional?
No, I think it's about the same. At the end of the day, we're all making content. Just depends on what language, where, the type of content you're making. But at the end, yeah, I mean, filmmaking is filmmaking. The only difference that I've noticed between the Indian industry and US industry is here, the key word or the magic phrase is ho jayega. So tension mat karo, ho jayega. So that's what I keep saying to everyone. I'm like, ho jayega.
But ho jata
Um, sometimes.
Okay. Tell me about working with Sagar Bellary and have you watched his earlier films, and what are the films that you've liked of his? And
Yeah, so Beja Fry, and I love comedy. That's something that I want to do in the future as well, because I do have a background in improv, but I loved Beja Fry, and obviously that's what everybody knows Sagar for. But you can tell that his way of working is very comedy driven. He always likes to keep it lighthearted and fun and fresh on set. He never is. When you have a director who's serious, it's nice, but sometimes that seriousness it exhausts you sometimes, and it kind of, sucks that energy out of you. So to have somebody as fresh as Sagar on set, who's upbeat and energetic, because these boys are, they're young boys in their teenage years, so they have so much energy. So to have a director try to keep up with them and have such a clear vision of what he wants with Abhay and I, that was very helpful as well. So Sagar was honestly a dream to work with, and I'd work with him again in a heartbeat. He let us, Abhay and I, have complete creative freedom on a lot of our scenes, and for that we respect him. And then he kind of guided us and molded us in the ways that would enhance our features of our style. So it was interesting to see his method of directing.
And what about Abhay? Because Abhay is also known to do very unusual roles in all his films. It's not a typical,
Yeah.
So tell me about that.
Yeah, he always mentioned that to me when we first met. He kind of gave me a rundown of his history and, where he's come from and what he's been through and things of that nature. And he said, I am quite mindful about, and I wouldn't say picky, but mindful about the things that I do and what I attach myself to. And I genuinely liked the script, and obviously the fact that this story had never been told. So he was like, I thought, why wouldn't I do this film? It makes complete sense for me to do it. It's more of that independent type of film where I'm able to show my acting skills versus just, song and dance and things of that nature. So he was really drawn to the script from the get-go, and I think he was pretty willing to be on board and take the role of Hrithikesh Janab, and he did an excellent job playing him. But yeah, he always, he reminded me of that. He said, be open to everything. And he even told me yesterday, he said, it's smart that you're allowing things to come to you, and you're coming into this industry with open arms, because that's the kind of manifesting you'll do, and that's the energy that you'll get back. And he was like, if you're really tough and, really stubborn, sometimes like the way that I was, or the way that maybe, the public saw me, sometimes like it's good to just be open to things. So I really respect Abhay, and, he's given me such great advice. And for that, I can't thank him enough, because obviously he is a veteran and he comes from such a high profile family of, individuals who are highly respected in the industry. So his advice sits deeply with me.
Any of his films that you like the most? Any of Abhay's films?
I love Devdi, and he was telling me yesterday that he created it, and he was the one that really established his character and was a part of the whole process of creating Devdi, which I had no idea. I just thought, he showed up and was an actor, but that's not true. He was heavily involved in that. So when he told me that, I kind of had a different outlook of Devdi. I mean, I love the film, but it made me respect the film even more. So that's obviously one of, his films that I love. And then, Zindagi is everybody's favorite. Who doesn't love that film? So that's another great film of his. But I know he just did a Disney film, and so I'm dying to watch that. I need to, check that out. But
are you in sync with the latest Hindi films? Have you watched RRR? Have you watched KGF?
I haven't watched RRR or KGF, but on my way here, I watched Gangubai Kathiawadi, and so touched by it. I mean, the fact that, Mr. Sanjay Leela Bhansali can create such a provocative subject about women without an ounce of sexualization or sexualizing the women is just, I mean, he's a mastermind. There's a reason why he's just such a, high level respected artist and creative. But it'd be my dream to work with him one day. But yeah, Gangubai Kathiawadi, I mean, what a film.
No, there's no proverbial male gaze in the film. It's a very beautifully, gracefully made film without, it's exactly. A subject which could have been otherwise, but the fine line and the beauty that it, he awards the film is another level.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was crying on the plane. I had goosebumps. I was laughing. It's that all around feel good film. It hits every single emotion, that film,
Yeah.
for me at least.
Yeah. What about, okay, you are a UNICEF ambassador as well, and now you're doing a film which has children who are, sportsmen but barefoot. So
Yeah.
how do you see both of these? How is it going to combine someday, or?
Yeah, when I worked with UNICEF back in 2014 as their global ambassador for the End Polio campaign, and that was my platform for Miss New Jersey, because I was competing at Miss USA, and so that was the one that I wanted to focus on, and I had that platform of the Miss Universe organization to bring awareness to it. So to that benefit, I was able to, talk about it on social media, be involved with the UNICEF campaign for it. And that year, actually, in India, they eradicated poverty completely. I mean, there was not one single case of polio in India. And so I do think that, coming to this now with underprivileged children who just don't have that platform or that opportunity to shine, I think that giving these kids just exactly that is very important. And that's something that we focused on while we were shooting Jungle Cry. Actually, we spoke to the University of Swansea to be able to give these kids a scholarship to, further their in. And a couple of the boys took that opportunity, and they are going off to Swansea University once they graduate high school. So being able to, again, give that platform to the kid. If you plant a seed in a small pot, then it can only grow in that small pot. If you give a big pot to a small seed, it has so much more potential to grow bigger. So that's kind of what you have to do. You've got to give these kids a bigger pot to reach their full potential.
That's amazing, because not very many people do that. It's always, sometimes they use them as subjects and let them be, and then take their own fame. But this is interesting. This is good. This is more outreach and justifying a lot from where you actually get the story from.
For sure. Yeah. And I still keep in touch with the kids. I mean, they message me on Instagram all the time, and, I check in on them, see how they're doing, what their conditions, like their living conditions, they're studying, how rugby's going, things of that nature. So they're always in touch with me. And, it's been since 2000, so 4 years since we shot the film, and to still be in touch with them, it makes me know that what I did in this film was worth everything that we've put into it.
Right. Okay, tell me about the pandemic. How did you cope? What did you learn? Were there new skills you learned? Did it change?
I actually learned, I took some courses at UCLA for writing. Okay. So I took on writing, and I actually created a series as well as writing 2 feature films. So I have that in my arsenal now. And now that I'm in India, because they are Indian-based scripts, I'm, talking to somebody like Shabir Boxwala, who was on this film and is a dear family friend of ours. So speaking to him about creating the things that, I've written and developed throughout the pandemic. So picked up that. And then on a fun note, I also created a gin, like vodka, tequila gin. So I created a gin in the US. I'm selling that throughout the US. So it was a fun.
What is that you don't do?
Don't say well.
Okay. So you've left that one to others. Okay, that's very good.
Well, but not well.
Okay. And what about the next film? Are you already reading something? Have you got offers? What is it next?
Yeah, those the ones that I'm reading for are obviously confidential right now, but the scripts that I do have that I did create during the pandemic is something that we are developing, and I'm also starring in them. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Knock on wood, they go somewhere.
Great. Good luck with Jungle Cry, and thank you very much for speaking to me. It is a pleasure speaking to you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Bye. Bye.